Okay, so the last video I was showing how to take a cube and subtract parts to draw other shapes and forms and structures that can live within inside the cube, similar to these guys and that guy. The more you subtract, the more you work on the form, the more complicated it can get. But in the beginning, just keep it simple. And as you can see, I've started to experiment here. So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shapes done instead of 10 more to go. And as you can see, as I'm working left to right, doesn't matter how you go about it, but or right to left, I'm erasing these lines to lighten them so they don't compete with the, I'm using green now. It's like a light green. And I'm using that line here, oops, constantly keeping my pencil sharp. I'll talk about some of these forms and I'll show you how to make some more complicated. And then I'll just draw one. But this is where you should be mid-stage. You can see some of these are really simple. If you look at this thing, this is very simple. It's just an L shape. I haven't done anything too complicated to it. If you look at this one down here, there's a curve. Don't do any curves yet. I was just experimenting with something, so ignore that portion there. But everything else is just a hard edge geometric form. Basically, this one was just a diagonal cut from the cube itself, and then I just took out this little insert. I just subtracted it. So I'll do, I'll figure something out here, but say I want to make this form slightly more complicated. What I can do now is I can slice out, I can take a little angle off the top here. So I'm going to go from this corner to here. I'm just going to slice a corner off. And then see where it intersects that line. I'm going to take it over to the other side. So what I'm doing now is you can do this after you've kind of got a simple shape. You know, you don't have to make things too complicated in the beginning. You can just do some very general subtraction all the way throughout, excuse me, and finish it. And then you can come back, and make it slightly more complicated just by subtracting little shapes out. And then get my needed, or this little guy. And I'm trying to erase, again, these aren't erasable, but they erase enough to get the job done. To be honest, I kind of like how non-erasable they are because it shows the history of the line, so that's kind of nice. So you saw that I just made this go down and then over down on a slightly diagonal. I made it slightly more complicated. I'm going to move on to the next shape. So I'm going to go with this, as you can see, this cube right here. I'm going to hit that guy next. So what I'm going to do is, what if I just subtract, I'm just going to line my ruler up with an existing diagonal line, and I'm going to put a line in here. Why did I do that? There's no reason. I'm just throwing something in. Now I'm going to line another line up with that green line I just put in, so I know it's parallel to, and I'm going to put another line in, just right here. Okay? After that, so maybe I'll subtract the middle part here. So see where this line intersects that line in this direction? I'm going to put my pencil there, run my ruler over. And by the way, this little graph, red graph ruler, is very effective for this project, meaning that you don't have to do the whole slide technique for every single little form. You can just use this guy, excuse me, something in my throat. You can use this guy and line things up just by overlapping a line that already exists. You have so many lines here. You've done all this work, so you might as well just take advantage of it. Make things easier for yourself, a lot less process. And then I'm just going to draw a line straight down. And then since this is, since I'm subtracting the middle here, I'm going to put my pencil right where these 2 points intersect, bring my ruler up, make sure that it is parallel to the existing vertical lines, and then draw a vertical line straight down. I have everything finished except there's a line here that I have to put in going in this direction, but I'm going to put it in with a ruler. And there we go. So I just subtracted the middle. Nothing really complicated. What could I do next? I could, excuse me, I'm going to notch out this shape here. It's kind of similar to what I had here, but it's just on a smaller scale. So in order to do that, I'm just going to draw a line here, and I'll draw another line here. So just basically drew a line vertically down and then a line across. And those lines are going to dictate the shape I'm going to notch out. I'm basically notching out this one shape. So now I have to take this line over here, run it across in this direction. Do the same thing down here. And then where it intersects this guy, I have to drop a line vertically down. And this guy I have to bring a line across. And hopefully they meet at the same spot, which they do. And it just so happens that that corner is the same corner as that blue line that was once there. Now, another question you might ask is like, what color do I use next? In this case, it kind of worked out for me. I used blue in the beginning just to map out my grid. I used red, or I think it was like an orange red, to articulate each individual cube. And then, and now I'm using green to draw the forms, a light green, because eventually you're going to go 2 or 3 values darker with other stages. And again, you can erase and lighten these lines as you go, so it's not a big deal, as long as you can see and differentiate between each stage and each color. That's the most important thing. Now, to go back to my shape here, I'm going to erase this little section here. And there you have it. I made another, not really a complicated form. All I did was subtract the center, and then I subtracted this part here. A lot of this is subtraction because you start off with a big full cube. Think of yourself as a sculptor and you're just chiseling away sections. Now if I want to make it more complicated, I want to add diagonals and things to it, I could do this. I'm going to go from this corner to that corner, and then I'm going to go from this corner here to the other corner. Those lines should be parallel. And then I'm going to take out, this gets annoying after a while, take out this part here. You can kind of see that I once had a piece that was there, and then I made a diagonal here. Now I have to draw in the rest of the shape of the form behind it, so I'm just going to continue this line until it meets the form in front of it, and then now you see something a little more complicated. Now, something you might not want to do, as you notice, whenever I put a diagonal line in, I want to make sure I see the plane. For example, if I were to put a diagonal line in this direction, and then I put another diagonal line here, I wouldn't be able to see the plane because it's behind the form. So it's not as interesting. The more plane shifts you can create, the more dynamic the form is. But you want to be able to view it. So always, whenever you do this, like for example, I'm going to, why not? I'm just going to take this corner off here. And I'm going to run it across the other side. See where this line meets that line there. Run across the other side. Just make sure your ruler is parallel to an existing line. And then run across the side here where this intersects that. And I run it, I can go up a little higher. And then I run it across. And where this meets this corner and this meets this corner, you just draw a line and connect those 2 points. And then hopefully it's parallel to the other side. And then I just erase what I subtracted. So now I have this kind of interesting shape here. Later on, when I start to round some of these forms, these shapes will become more and more complex. But little by little, I'm completing the entire 19 cubes here. And again, you can go back and make this more complicated. I could subtract a vertical line right here if I wanted to. Should I do it now? Why not? I'll just do it right now. So from this corner down, I'm just gonna draw a vertical line straight down. And then, I don't know, I'll subtract this right here. And I'll just do a thin subtraction. And then I'm gonna draw a line. Just making sure that this is vertical. I will say the more you use it, sometimes it's not as perfect, but it's pretty close. So then what I can do is I can just take out this little sliver of negative space. But you have to put the back lines in. For example, you got to put this little line here would go down. And this line here would go over. But I have to make them more clear. And you also want it parallel to the existing lines. So you kind of see I just took a little negative space out. Do I like it? I don't know. Maybe if I do a diagonal here. So you kind of see I'm just playing around, experimenting. I can always put something back if I don't like it. So you just saw that I subtracted another diagonal because I didn't like that negative space, but I did like down there where that line continued on and fell behind this form. I thought that was nice. And now you have like kind of two shapes, one look like they're standing in line behind each other, which is interesting, I suppose. So my pencil's starting to get dull. Constantly, as I said before, sharpen your pencil. Don't get lazy there, just keep sharpening it. So you can kind of see how I made something really simple more and more complex through applying different stages to it. So some of these things can be more complex than others. Some can be more simple. Everything doesn't have to be super complex. And don't spend too much time trying to break it down. You know, you have 19 cubes to fill in. Just fill them in. If you want to go back and make adjustments later, you can do that. One more thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to end this video. Do you see this shape here? I didn't really show you how to do any of that before. So basically, this is just a pyramid living inside that cube. You know how to make this stuff based off of your previous project. So I'm going to throw another one up here. What you want to do is you want to cross your corners of that top plane. So I'm going to work within this cube right here. And this blue line already crosses my corners, but I'm going to do it anyway. That finds my center. I'm going to take my center and I can connect it to these four corners, and then I have this pyramid. But check this trick out. I'll just kind of do the same thing I did here. I'm going to go down on one of these diagonals just a little bit, you know, I'm going to say 1/4 inch or so. No specific measurement, just an eyeball. And then I'm going to take a line and run it over to the other side. Once it intersects that line, I'm going to take another line and run it over to the other side. If you hear my baby, he is next to me trying to participate. I bring it this way, and then I bring it over across. I'm just trying to make sure everything's parallel. So you can kind of see I made this square within a square just by crossing the corners. And from that point, actually I can make vertical lines down and make a little tiny shape with it in there, but I can also connect these to the corners at the bottom. This one's already basically there. This one's already basically there. Oh no, this one's not. I have to apply this one in. And then the back one you can't really see. So you can kind of see how maybe I should outline this a little bit more. And I'll outline this line a little bit more. Okay, so that this and this is the same thing, with the exception is I took the middle part out. not a big deal. What if I took the middle part out and going in this direction? That'd be kind of fun. So I'm gonna I'll take a sliver out here. And again, just make sure your lines are parallel. And I'm gonna take a sliver out here. And then instead of going straight down, that's not gonna make sense. You have to go with the diagonal of these planes. I'm actually glad I'm showing you this now. This is a tricky one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to connect these points until they meet each other. See, if this pyramid continued all the way out, it would point right here. So that to me is somewhat of a vanishing point. We're gonna get to that when we talk about 2-point perspective, but just use that as a point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line this ruler up to that point, put my pencil here, and then I'm gonna draw a line straight down, put my pencil here, put it to the point there, draw a line straight down. And you kind of see that I subtracted the middle here, and I'm gonna take out what I subtracted with, and then you just put in the other part of the wall. So I'm gonna put this back wall in. Oh, I'm sorry, that would also point at that vanishing point, just like so. And then this one, this does not go to the vanishing point. This is parallel to this line. So then I'm going to continue this. When we do get into perspective, parallel lines recede to the same vanishing point. So if these were to recede to the same vanishing point, they would go to whatever. That's a different lesson. I don't want to confuse you guys anymore. So you kind of saw that I made something a little more complicated there, just by starting off with a pyramid, some form of a pyramid. One more thing I wanted to do. So one thing I don't want you to worry about yet. So for example, do you see the space between this form and that form, and it doesn't feel like there's a ground? It feels like an open space behind this. Don't worry about that yet. We're going to tackle that later on. But for now, I want you just to fill in all these individual 19 cubes with geometric forms as you see I'm doing here. Okay?